Hello, my name is Andrew Wang Sanada. I'm a startup solutions architect at Amazon Web Services. In my role, I'm working with startups all over ASEAN, helping them achieve their goals. Today, I'll be sharing with you some guidance on how you can create the right technical foundations for your startup. This session is intended as an introduction to how founders and engineers can maximize how to leverage the most out of AWS as they begin their journey. Let's get started. AWS has over 1 million active customers in 190 countries. This slide shows just some of the startups in ASEAN who trust AWS to help run their products. AWS works with startups of all stages, from early-stage startups starting to make their ideas a reality, to larger established startups who are household names. We also have specialized programs to support startups at every step of their journey. What do we mean by right technical foundation? The right technical foundation will vary for every startup depending on their individual circumstance. But there are definitely key elements that apply generally. The way to think about this is, what is the business objective of a startup? Startups operate in an environment of high uncertainty. There is a thesis the startup believes in, but it is not yet proven. The startup now aims to prove that thesis in an empirical fashion by executing and acquiring customers until some point when they reach product market fit. The startup's journey is the process by which they accomplish this, or not. As you may already know, startups have a high failure rate. What we will talk about today are the technical aspects of how we can support reaching that product market fit successfully. Before we get into any actual tech, let's talk about how we think about this. This quote by Reid Hoffman exemplifies how to think about your product in the early stages. In order to move towards product market fit, your startup must iterate and experiment quickly to learn and pivot. Your startup must be able to get feedback as quickly as possible for this. So how do we build product? Do we try to build it all at once, where it is only usable once it is complete? Probably not, because that would take us too long to get user feedback, and we risk wasting all that time and effort making a product that no one wants. Instead, we want to build the product incrementally, in such a way that at each step it is usable and we can receive feedback for how to improve the product during our next iteration. When building your product, everything will seem important, but you need to prioritize what gets done in each sprint. One way to think about this is as a matrix with the dimensions speed to implement and impact on your customers. A guideline for speed should be, does it fit in a sprint for a single developer? For impact, will it meaningfully change a metric you care about? Avoid the undifferentiated corner at all costs. Your users won't see it. Too often I see startups building databases or other services that are not core to their business. It's probably already been built by someone or offered as a service. You have capacity to build probably one great product. Make sure it's the right one. Focus on your core business. Outsource the rest. Your customers are likely not going to care that you spent 6 hours applying that latest database patch. Items in breakdown are important, but too big. You want to decompose those into smaller features that you can implement in less time. Items in distraction will be tempting and come up often. Don't do it. It doesn't have value for your customers, so it shouldn't have value for you. All the work you are doing should fit in the upper right quadrant. Here we see the struggle of every startup. The bottom axis represents time until impact. Each dot is a feature, and the size of the dot represents how much time it took to build it. Too often, startups are building features needed too far in the future. This doesn't work. You are moving so fast in different directions, and there's so much uncertainty. That future you plan for now is not proven to materialize. Future planned work is usually bigger, meaning a disproportionate amount of your effort will take time, if ever, to return value. The biggest problem, though, is that many features are built to return value after you have run out of money. To avoid this, remove undifferentiated work. Postpone work needed for the future, and focus on delivering features that your users are asking for now. These will be faster to deliver and make it more likely you will find product market fit. Another topic that often comes up is technical debt. Technical debt is the buildup of deficiencies in internal quality that make it harder than it would ideally be to modify and extend the system further. While it's true that getting everything right at the beginning will reduce the work you need to do to improve and maintain it in the future, it is inevitable that you will create technical debt when moving fast, especially in an early-stage startup. Treat technical debt in your MVP as an acceptable cost to moving quickly. As a fast-moving startup, quickly discovering, developing, and releasing features your users want is the most important task you can be doing. While the absolute cost to remove technical debt is lower now, in relative terms, it could be huge because it can mean your entire engineering team working on this and not features. The other reason not to worry is you will probably rebuild your core product many times over during the life of your startup. Building is fun, maintaining is not. While it might seem easy to build something initially, this approach does not scale well. Remember, everything you build, you will have to maintain. Saying no to building some things is good. Too often startups are building something not because their customers need it, but because their talented technical teams have the ability to build it. But they lack the awareness to not build it. By building less, you will maintain less and deliver more to your users. Undifferentiated lifting is hard and unnecessary. Using services means you don't need to provision infrastructure or scale instances. Accelerate the speed of development and pay only for the value you receive from using AWS services, while also having secure and highly available characteristics built in. Let's discuss some common patterns for early-stage startups. It helps to think of AWS as building blocks that you can use as sparingly or as many of as you want. You use whatever is appropriate for you at a given point in time, and use more or less as you evolve. If you have a static website or a single-page application, otherwise known as an SPA, Amplify Console is a straightforward way to easily host and integrate into your development environment. It works with SPA frameworks like React, Angular, Vue.js, Ionic, and Ember. It also works with static site generators like Gatsby, Hugo, VuePress, and Jekyll. It's so easy to start. Connect your Git repository, configure your build settings, deploy your app. For full-stack apps, starting with a monolith is often the right choice. It allows for fast development at the early stages as you don't need to design the process boundaries ahead of time. A well-designed monolith can be scaled horizontally and broken apart later if needed. Some startups will never outgrow the scaling capacity of a well-designed monolith. Adding features to a monolith is usually quick, as there is one place it needs to be done. Let's walk through how a startup might deploy and scale their monolith application. On this slide, we see a common scenario. A startup is using an Amazon EC2 instance, which you can think of as a virtual machine on AWS Cloud, to host their application with all the components inside of it. As the application evolves, the startup discovers they have a greater need for more scalable storage and don't want to spend time or effort managing their own database. So they adopt Amazon Simple Storage Service, otherwise known as S3, and Amazon Relational Database Service, also known as RDS. The application is now decoupled from the storage and database. It turns out the startup has found amazing product market fit and now needs to scale across multiple dimensions. They start to horizontally scale their application by adding another Amazon EC2 instance for performance and reliability with elastic load balancing to distribute requests. They start using RDS read replicas so their reads don't impact database write performance, and they introduce a standby instance for database reliability. For frequently accessed data, they start using Amazon ElastiCache to provide a fully managed in-memory cache for serving those requests extremely fast. This example highlights how building on AWS allows your startup to begin at a point you're comfortable with and then gradually adopt services and features as they become relevant to your needs. As your startup grows, the requirements of your system will evolve. Similar to how we architect our software applications to support maintainability, so too are there best practices around how to put AWS blocks together to help systems scale and be amenable to change. Are you using containers? Everything I just described is also completely applicable using containers and can be accomplished using Amazon Elastic Container Service. To eliminate the overhead of managing virtual machine instances, you can also opt for AWS Fargate, our serverless container solution. And to ease the developer experience, you can use AWS App Runner, which helps simplify how you deploy and manage containers. Decoupling data is a fundamental principle we describe, but what are some of the benefits to doing this? Ultimately, decoupling data from your application allows for independent scaling and higher reliability. Let's see some of the options in AWS. If we need to decouple file storage, we can use one of Amazon Simple Storage Service, S3, Amazon Elastic File Store, EFS, or Amazon Elastic Block Store, EBS. There are various considerations on when to use each, but in general, as we move from left to right, we go from cheaper and more distributed to higher cost and more centralized. You can discuss with an AWS Solutions Architect what might be the best fit for your use case. Use of S3 is very common among startups, and in a little bit, I'll show you some use cases for it. AWS also has a wide range of managed database products and services as well. These managed services enable startups to offload the undifferentiated heavy lifting of database infrastructure and allow them to rapidly deploy, tear down, add high availability, and scale required databases with a few clicks. I'll highlight just these four that we see most commonly used by startups today. The most commonly used database is Amazon Aurora and Amazon Relational Database Service, as it is the natural starting point for many applications and frameworks. There are many flavors, with the most common being MySQL and Postgres. Next are key value stores by DynamoDB and DocumentDB. DynamoDB is the database technology powering Amazon.com's massive scale, and DocumentDB is AWS's MongoDB-compatible offering. Elasticache comes in Memcached and Redis flavors and offers fully managed instances to save startups from that undifferentiated heavy lifting. A key benefit of using AWS is leveraging the different services to accelerate time to market. Here we'll describe how to put various AWS building blocks together to accomplish some use cases. One easy and common use case is automated image optimization. Here, we have a simple workflow which auto-generates thumbnails. One of the features of Amazon S3 is automated event notification on object creation. We can use this to automatically trigger an AWS Lambda function. AWS Lambda is part of AWS's serverless offering and enables customers to define functions and run them in the cloud without needing to deploy a server. They are event-driven and only run when invoked. You only pay for the time the function runs, down to the millisecond. Here, the S3 notification calls our Lambda function, which creates the thumbnail and stores it back in the bucket. Among the many benefits of this pattern are no servers to manage and extremely low efficient cost. Here, we leverage the same automated event notification from Amazon S3 to trigger notifications to a wide variety of devices. We leverage Amazon's simple notification service, which can directly email, deliver push notifications to devices, or even trigger a customer notification workflow via an AWS Lambda function. A big topic these days is machine learning and artificial intelligence. This slide showcases the AWS machine learning stack. It is the broadest and most complete set of machine learning capabilities. In general, the bottom layers offer more flexibility in exchange for requiring a higher level of expertise. The top layer, AI services, offers less flexibility but more accessibility. We'll focus on the AI services, and even then, the ones we see most commonly used by startups in ASEAN. Everything in this layer is designed to be consumed by developers with little to no experience in machine learning. You provide data, you call an API, and you get a result. This is very powerful and enables startups to compete at similar levels to larger organizations with more resources. Amazon Rekognition is an AI service offering pre-trained and customizable computer vision capabilities. In this workflow, we demonstrate how a user's uploaded images get processed by a Lambda function, which in turn calls Amazon Rekognition for analysis and populates Amazon OpenSearch with the results. This workflow can be used to perform things like traffic analysis of cars or pedestrians, perform object detection in images or video, and facial analysis of people. Amazon TextRact automatically extracts text, handwriting, and data from scanned documents. A common use case for this is bridging offline to online workflows to reduce or even eliminate manual data entry. Amazon Personalised is a recommendation engine used by startups like HappyFresh and Pomelo Fashion to customize their user experience and boost sales. A typical workflow for training, deploying, and getting recommendations from a campaign looks like this. AWS Glue is a serverless data integration service that makes it easy to discover, prepare, and combine data. We use it here to prepare data from our various data sources, placing it in S3, and then feeding it into Amazon Personalised for recommendations. Another common requirement for startups is how to get information out of the data they have collected. Amazon Athena is a serverless interactive query service. This is a great option for performing ad hoc queries on data you have in S3 with no infrastructure to manage. Athena supports SQL syntax, and if you used a SQL query client in the past, the interface will be very familiar to you. This enables engineers, BI teams, and analysts to quickly start using it with a minimal learning curve. Amazon QuickSight is a BI service enabling startups to quickly make dashboards and create reports. It is also serverless, meaning no infrastructure to manage. Here's how the authoring view looks like. This combination of operational data, Glue, S3, QuickSight, and Athena enable a powerful serverless analytics solution appropriate for most startups. Most early-stage startups won't have a dedicated security person or team, and that means that everyone is responsible for security. That being said, it's not possible for everyone to become a security expert. So it's crucial that those in leadership roles build the right culture and install the right guardrails to allow their startup to build and innovate fearlessly. First, every AWS account has a set of contact details associated with it. These include the email address of the root account, as well as optional contact details for billing operations and security. These points of contact are extremely important to keep up to date, as AWS will use these if receiving reports of abuse, such as mail spam, denial of service attacks, or other malicious activity coming from resources in your AWS account. If we don't receive a response and the malicious behavior continues, we may take action to protect ourselves and others by suspending or terminating those accounts as per our acceptable use policy. Regularly check that your contact details are up to date, and you can also change the alternate contacts as frequently as needed. Every AWS account is set up using a globally unique email address and a password. This is called the root account, and it is all-powerful. It sits outside the scope of the Identity and Access Management Service and has full and unrestricted access to everything in the account. While there are a few tasks which require the root account, that list is growing smaller all the time. Never use the root account except when setting up a new AWS account. Do not create API credentials for the root user, and ensure that the root user has both a strong password and multi-factor authentication enabled. A common pattern I see with early-stage startups is hard-coding credentials to sensitive infrastructure in source code or config files, committing that to version control, and then deploying it. This is extremely bad practice and is the source of many security incidents I've seen firsthand. Inside AWS, I encourage you to use IAM execution roles where possible to control access to AWS services and resources. Where actual credentials are required, I encourage you to use a secrets management service like Amazon Secrets Manager. It's a fundamental principle of information security that any entity should have the permissions required to perform its function and no more. While it's tempting to just attach the administrator access policy and move on, spending some time on managing permissions brings huge benefits to your security posture. We recognize that it can be time-consuming to do this, so we have built a number of tools to make it easier for AWS administrators to create effective and secure policies. These include IAM Access Analyzer, IAM Policy Simulator, and we also recently released functionality to allow you to quickly and easily generate IAM policies from your CloudTrail logs based on recent activities. AWS offers a broad range of over 200 services, and in some cases, those services have significant overlap. If you want to run your application on AWS, you can choose from multiple compute environments, not all of which are listed on this slide. What you can see here is that as you move from traditional host-centric compute with EC2 through managed container orchestration with ECS and EKS to serverless containers with Fargate, and finally to serverless functions with Lambda, the amount of management overhead taken on by AWS increases significantly. Managing servers at scale is a hard problem, even for businesses with a large IT team. With EC2, you get the maximum possible control and customization, but you are responsible for network security, patching, AMI creation, system hardening, OS optimization, application deployment, and orchestration. It's a lot. As you move up the stack, the responsibility for the majority of those tasks moves from the customer to AWS until you arrive at AWS Lambda, where the customer is responsible for managing their application code and not much else. I believe that startups who adopt the serverless-first approach to cloud infrastructure have a significant advantage due to the reduction in operational overhead and the automatic inheritance of more AWS best practice. I work with a number of fintech startups, and I'm seeing more and more choosing either AWS Lambda or AWS Fargate as their default compute environment because it removes so much of the overhead of building a secure product with undifferentiated heavy lifting such as patching managed by AWS. Of course, the option to move to a less opinionated compute environment is always available, and for workloads requiring GPUs, parallel processing, compute clusters, and extremely high-performance instances, such as our bare metal EC2 offerings, they will always be there and improving all the time. That was a lot of information. I encourage you to reach out to an AWS Solutions Architect to dive deeper on any of the topics we talked about today to learn more. We have teams across all ASEAN countries specializing in startups who are eager to learn about your ideas and how we can help make your startup successful. Some of the material from this session comes from a guide we published last year, especially for startups. I highly recommend downloading this guide to get a better understanding of the different ways you might be able to adopt AWS for your startup. We have localized versions in Indonesian, Vietnamese, and Thai as well. To gain more confidence and hands-on experience at AWS, access the digital training built by AWS experts, attend our instructor-led classes by qualified AWS instructors, and learn how to design, deploy, and operate highly available, cost-effective, and secure applications on AWS. Validate your technical expertise with AWS, and use practice exams to help you prepare for AWS certification. I and all of us here at AWS really appreciate your feedback so that we can better understand the topics and services you would like to know about. Please do take the time to fill out our survey and let us know what you think. You can also hit us up directly on any of these channels. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing what you build out in the wild. Cheers.